Hello and welcome to our 5 minutes with Ekaterina vlog about Dnipro, the central Ukraine. There are so many things that we need to discuss that happened since we've met the previous time that I'll try to cramp everything in this video. If I miss out something, I'll tell you next time. But let's start firstly from the situation in Dnipro itself. It was pretty much deteriorating with more bombings. The previous week was very intense because we had bombings almost every night, and one night there were over 20 explosions that could be heard. I didn't count them. I saw how many there were online. There's the specific media, they usually count the explosions. I didn't want to. I stopped counting when I heard 5 of them, and it started about 1 a.m. and then it finished only at 6 a.m. So nobody slept well. I tried to sleep in between the bombings, but in the morning I felt like I haven't slept at all. And I was hearing the sound of the drones, and the drones they have this squeaky sound of unoiled motorbike. And then I heard the rockets, the whistling sound, and then the explosions. I didn't see the light myself, but my mom said that from her bedroom she could firstly see the light, and then after a few seconds you hear the explosion. She heard the explosion because the light spreads in the space faster than sound. And that's basically the physics of Dnipro. You're learning physics in the real time. So you know that firstly you will see and then you will hear the explosion. And over 20 drones were hit that night, and then maybe there were some that were not hit, and at least one rocket also arrived in the city. And then the next night there were about 5 explosions, and then the next night there was again massive bombing, and it was just pretty much in a row. So I was thinking after the big explosion, I was thinking, okay, no, now we can just rest. And it wasn't true. So because then we still had bombings. This week it's a little bit more quiet in Dnipro because all the rockets are sent to other parts of Ukraine, and since we started talking about it, probably heard that yesterday about 20 drones. The officially Polish government, officially they say it was 19. The first reporting from Polish journalists said it was 23 and maybe one rocket. So around 20 drones, they were into the Polish space, and this was one of the biggest attacks. Again, right now in Ukraine, if you think we have every night about 400 drones, 500 drones every night plus rockets, and 20 of them or 19 of them, let's follow the official sources, they landed in Poland and they were found, and only 4 of them were hit by Polish anti-missile systems. Which is, if you think how much was deployed, aviation was deployed, searching groups were deployed, the Polish troops were in high alert because, according to the Belarusian sources, Belarusian side warned them that these targets are moving towards Poland. So they were waiting for them, they were searching for them, they deployed aviation, and they were able to hit only 4 drones there. That's terrible. One family suffered, thankfully they didn't die, but in Poland the house of an elderly couple was hit by this kind of probably German drone, or Gerbiera, they call them Gerbiera because German is the one that has explosives on them, and Gerbiera doesn't have. It's just to exhaust the anti-missile system. And it looks like a conscious provocation. Polish government said that there is evidence that it wasn't just accidentally, it wasn't just the drones that missed their targets in Ukraine, or were just derived or get out of their course because of Ukrainian anti-missile, and that they were specifically targeted into Poland. Rumors, I haven't seen it from official sources, but the media says that they were found the SIM cards of Polish and Lithuanian operators inside these drones. So that means that Russia is now attacking NATO, and it is escalation. It is a very big insecurity. And if you follow me I write all the time. Sometimes I tell it here that Ukraine now is not only fighting for ourselves, for its citizens. Ukraine is also defending Europe, and there are some Russian sources that are saying that it's Ukraine who sends uh, missiles, and that Ukraine discussed over its Russian, like its Russian drones, all this nonsense, so that Ukraine is should be blamed for it. But actually, it's very logical. Russian expansionism and Russian testing of the NATO capacity. And honestly, I'm not. Thankfully, I'm not a Russian military representative. But if I saw that 4 out of 16 drones, out of 19, sorry, drones were hit, I wouldn't be very much impressed. So I'm very sorry for Polish people. I'm sorry for Ukrainian people who witnessed it from Poland, for Ukrainian refugees who saw drones in Poland. There's a footage of a woman running and crying because of this. And she's Ukrainian, and she didn't expect that she will experience Russian drones in Poland, where she thought that she's in safety. So I'm very sorry for people who witnessed it. I'm very sorry for this couple whose house was hit in Poland. And I just would like to stress that it's the common war, it's not only Ukrainian war. Now Europe is under direct threat, and if there is anyone who thought differently, I think after yesterday, yeah, everybody should wake up and everybody should think how they can contribute into Ukrainian victory, they can contribute into Ukrainian resistance, because their countries are also under this existential threat of this Russian expansionism and Russian military aggression. So last week we were in Dnipro, we were heavily bombed. This week, mostly Western Ukraine and Poland is bombed, and Dnipro is more or less calm. Children are at school, and most of them would either do half of the time in school and half of the time online, or half of the days they will have to shelter in the bomb shelters in the basements of the schools. It is not the childhood you would like to have for your children, but that's the new reality. The situation with food is good. Again, prices are going up, but we have plenty of everything. And also, the thing that did change is that the housing prices went way up because in Dnipro region there are many refugees who are coming from the front line into Dnipro and into neighboring towns. If I have a chance, I'll film it. I don't want to film it. I saw refugees before. I don't want to kind of speculate or abuse it. But let's see if the humanitarian organization would let us, because I'm going to visit one of these points soon. There are some of the people who evacuate. They are looking for housing. The housing gets scarce, and that's why the prices are going up. That shows that the situation in Dnipro, on this border in Donetsk region, villages and towns, is getting worse. And there are 3 villages in Dnipro regions that are already captured by Russians, and the gray zone is expanding. And gray zone, it means that it basically the contested territory, and that means that you cannot live there. It means the two armies are in ongoing fight. So the missiles, the small range missiles, the artillery, soldiers with guns, so grenades, mines, everything around you is very much unsafe, and you have to leave. And if you're leaving, there might be some marauders, people who are robbing your houses, and when you're leaving, there is no guarantee that you ever will come back. And more people are like this in Dnipro. The points are very much overcrowded, and it's very frustrating that the front line is still moving. As for Pokrovsk, last week or last time we were talking, I got a lot of views for the short video about Pokrovsk. The situation in the city itself is the same, but Russians are trying to surround it, and they captured a few villages, but the Ukrainian army is also liberated some territories. So it is right now pretty much contested area, contested zone. Hopefully Russians wouldn't be able to do it. especially after Ukrainian army was able to hit their headquarters in Donetsk, and some of the top officers they were either wounded or maybe somebody was killed in this operation. And that means that maybe we will be able to stop the advance here, and maybe again because they started also to send troops from Kherson region here, so they're trying to push into Dnipro region, into Donetsk region very hard, and it's very very frustrating. But the hope is still there. The advance is not great up to now, up to this middle September, and hopefully they won't be able to move before the cold, before the land operations will be ceased for winter. The other thing that happened, not in Dnipro but in Ukraine, is that another famous and very important person for Ukraine, Andrei Porobий, was killed in Lviv. He was killed by a pro-Russian person who lived in Ukraine and whose son even served and died for Ukraine in Ukrainian army. So his first idea was just to tell that he did it for his son's body, for retrieving his son's body. But then his ex-wife said that they didn't communicate with son for many years. She was divorced to the father, and the son and the father had a very big argument because son was pro-Ukrainian and father was pro-Russian. So there was a pro-Russian man who actively was seeking for some Russian creators, and Russian creators give him the weapons or provided him with weapons, and he killed Andrei Parubij, who was one of the very active leaders of the revolution when President Yanukovych was kicked out of the country. And he was very pro-Ukrainian, very well organized. He served as a speaker of the parliament for a while, and currently he just lived in Lviv. He was pretty low in terms of political activity. We didn't hear of him for a lot of time, and it shows that Russians, they just want to kill everybody they can kill. A little bit 1 year ago in Lviv, there was another murder, again ordered by Russians and again performed by a Ukrainian person who was brainwashed. It was a teenager, a 19 years old boy, who was brainwashed by Russians, and who was also provided weapons and killed Irina Farion, who was also very pro-Ukrainian. And despite both these people, they were controversial, but they were for Ukraine, they were fighting for Ukraine, they did something very significant for Ukrainian nation. And of course, it shows that Russia will try to kill everybody. There was also the attempt to murder Serhiy Stirnenko. There is another pattern. Thankfully, he had a bodyguard. He's a famous activist and also participant of the revolution. The person who tried to do it, she's Ukrainian, but she's pro-Russian Ukrainian, also recruited by Russians. So what Russians are trying to do, they're trying to hire local people who go to the address provided by Russians. They look at the activists, and they're just trying to kill whoever they can kill. And of course, it also poses the question of the personal safety. And it's if you can speak, they want us, including myself, want people like me, more famous people. I have a very tiny YouTube channel, but there are many other more famous bloggers who are pro-Ukrainian, who tell the truth about what's happening between Ukraine and Russia, who are reporting from Ukraine. So they want to silence us, they want to scare us. And for myself, I'm thinking I cannot really physically fight at the front line. I'm not fit enough, and even if I exercise, so I am trying to exercise, but I cannot get into the fit level to do anything useful there. But I can talk, I know English, I have my audience, I have you, and I can just spread the word about it. And what Russians are trying to do is they're trying to silence everybody and kill everybody they can. And thankfully, I'm following the space, the Ukrainian space. Nobody seems to say that, oh, okay, we are not going to report on Russia's aggression, we are not going to report on war. There are some very good foreign journalists that are based in Ukraine and are not scared as well. But I am scared, like I'm scared about their lives when I'm watching what they're saying. So the whole reasoning behind these murders. Is that Russians are trying to silence everybody who is pro-Ukrainian, who has a voice, who has followers, and they don't want Ukrainian voices to be heard abroad and even in the country. And the latest thing, or the last thing I wanted to talk about is the protest movement. That's something that we probably didn't cover. Maybe I mentioned it, but last week there were protests in Kyiv as well. And both times, this protest and the protests in late August, they were against the government, against the actions of the government, and they were not organized. They were pretty much random, mostly done by young people without any political force stand behind them. And this time, the government and the parliament, they wanted to pass a law that they need to actually punish without choice the deserters, people who without the permission leave the front line, or they leave the army to go home, and they want the punishment as the 5 years prison term. And that's terrible for us because people who flee the front lines, they have different motivations. Somebody is just scared, somebody is very tired, somebody is unwell, there was a mistake, and somebody has some quarrel with the commandment, and they're happy to serve in the different forces. And sometimes, being honest, commandment is doing something not great. They don't understand the situation on the ground, and people know that they will be just killed in certain operations, and they don't want to go. And that's another reason why people would flee the army. There are many more reasons. And also one contributing factor is that you cannot demobilize if you're already in the army. So because of these reasons, pretty often people would temporarily leave, and then they will come back, they will stay in specific military unit for a couple of months, and then they will be sent either to their unit or to a different unit if they arranged it. And that's the situation now. So if you want to come back, you can come back with almost without any punishment. But the government wanted to remove the system, and the government wanted to imprison everybody without any trial, and that was something that people didn't like this time, which is true. And also it shows that we have reduced capacity economically, because the other thing that was adopted maybe this or last week is that the families of the killed soldiers, of soldiers killed by Russians at war, they were about to receive the compensation, and they were about to receive the compensation within 40 months, and now the government extended it to 80 months, and somebody was counting with all the bureaucracy that the amount of money that should have been given to the family within 4 years now will be given within 7 years. And also there are some restrictions in salary, restrictions in bonuses, because people wouldn't receive the salary from their workplace. They will only receive the military salary, so it's not double salary anymore. And it shows that the Ukrainian economy is not doing great now. And that also I was looking at the foreign prognosis in the economy, and the prognosis for the next year in the economy is very uncertain, and there's going to be a global recession. So we have wars, and we have our economic crisis, which is going to overlap with the economic crisis globally, and then it is going to overlap with the Russian aggression now against Poland and potentially against Lithuania, potentially invasion of Baltic states. So there are many potential ways of Russia to be a problem. And again, if you think about the aviation that was flying yesterday over Poland, and if you start counting, there was like enormous money that were just literally sent into air, because very expensive rockets, like 1 million rockets, they were trying to intercept the drones. And again, if you think about what you can do with 1 million, even if you're a small community, not even personally, but if you're a small village, you can build some, maybe a short road, maybe you can repair a school or repair a hospital. So this money will go to war, so the money that we allocated to something else, they will go to war. And the economic situation, not only with salary but also with payments for the soldiers, is not going to be any better anytime soon. So there are problems in Ukraine. That's something that is very clear. I don't want to be like over optimistic or lie to you, but also we do receive some international help, and we do depend on international help to keep going, to keep trying to throw Russia away, or at least to keep Russia away from Europe, busy in Ukraine. Which is, it was the primary, I think it was the primary target for some of the countries who were trying to help us. But now I think these efforts should be more concentrated and way more organized because as the global community, as the Western community, should think how to defend themselves. And the earlier we defend Russia, the better the economy will become, and the better life we will be able to have for ourselves and for the next generation. So that's it for today. That's the update. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much for your support. Please do spread the word. You see that Russians are not only trying to do all this disinformation, they're physically trying to kill people who are delivering or reporting the truth from Ukraine. So please don't be silent. Spread the word. Talk to your friends. Repost some Ukrainian content from Ukrainians. Then just watch it as well. Just be aware of what's happening. And thank you so much for your support. Thank you very much for watching. And I hope to see you very soon under better circumstances. Goodbye for now.